Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the pre-harvest planning FieldView webinar. We are here and ready to answer any of your questions that you have related to getting ready for harvest. And I have a couple of great ladies with me here today to make sure that you are ready to collect data and see the fruits of all your labor throughout the year and understand what paid off for you this season as we get ready to go into harvest. And corn is starting to turn already around our area, and it'll be here before we know it. So, Adrian, if you'll go ahead and advance the slide, the first thing I want to make sure that you all know how to do is ask any questions that you have. Krista and Adrian are here to make sure that they can take care of anything that might be lingering on your mind. So, in order to ask questions on our webinar today, you can use the Q&A box or the chat function. I'll be keeping an eye on both of those. And so if you do not see the Q&A or the chat on the right-hand side of your screen, go ahead and utilize the controls at the bottom of your screen to open up those panels, and they'll appear on the right-hand side of your screen. So make sure you send those questions in. Adrian and Krista want to be here to answer any of your questions. So with that, I want to just provide some introductions here today. We have Adrian Dane, who is a Climate Activation Manager on the line with us. And we also have Krista Russell, who's a Regional Experience Advisor. And both of these ladies are very knowledgeable in making sure that you all are ready for harvest. I'm Mindy McDermott. You've probably seen and heard me on these webinars before. I'll be manning the controls so that Krista and Adrian can focus on their presentation. And so we can make best use of our time. I'm going to toss things right over to Adrian, and she'll get us started and let you know what's ahead in store for our webinar.
Awesome. Thanks, Mindy. So for today, really what we've got on our agenda is we're going to kind of dive into some different yield analysis pieces, kind of really some more housekeeping items that we can be doing within our iPad, on the CAB app, on your iOS version itself, to really just kind of set us up for success for once we hit the fields this harvest. And then we're going to actually jump into the CAB app, do some live demos on some different practices that we can be doing ahead of time to get us ready to go once it is time to hit the fields. And then we'll share with you all some additional resources so that you guys have that stuff on hand if you do have any questions that come up either before or during harvest. And then we'll open up the floor for some questions at the end if there are any out there that you guys run across throughout this presentation. With that being said, I will jump into this first piece here. So when we think about the yield analysis piece, this is something that we've got once we have our planning data in your accounts, your application data, and to ensure that we really have the opportunity to utilize these yield analysis reports to the best that we can. It's really important to have good, clean data in your account when we're working with the planning piece and the application piece. You know, you guys have put in the time out there to collect your planning data and your harvest data. And, you know, to allow us to have these accurate reports at the end, it's important to have, you know, good hybrid names. So that way, when we run these reports, we have the option to view some very accurate data. So as you can see here on the left-hand side, this hybrid performance report, this allows us to see how these hybrids across your operation have performed. Right here in this view, you can see how each hybrid has performed across your whole operation. And then we actually have the capability to dive a little bit deeper into a field-by-field basis. We can go a little bit deeper here on the right-hand side. We have our soil type performance report. This is where we can kind of see how the different soil types across your operation have performed. And as you can see, it's a little bit small maybe on your screen, but there on the far right-hand side, that little right-hand arrow there, that's an option where you can dive a little bit deeper into each different tab there. So if you wanted to jump into a specific soil type, you can really then break it down to what all hybrids were planted across those soil types and really see how they performed throughout your operation and across your fields. And then jumping into a little bit more with our yield analysis reports, we have the opportunity to, or the option to, create PDF reports. You can print them from your iPad, email them, print them straight from your iPad. That gives you an overall view of how your different hybrids performed across your operation. You can see how it is as a whole, and then a breakdown with across average yields and how many acres it was harvested across your whole operation. And continuing to speak on the hybrid tab itself, and why it's important to continue to have the good, clean data in your account. This allows those reports to be as accurate as possible. Now, let's say we maybe messed up on putting in a hybrid name. We forgot to put a space. We've got 2 hybrid names that are in there. They're the same hybrid, but one doesn't have a space in it. So I'll jump back here real quick. So on this report, we might see the same hybrid twice. And so it's going to kind of throw off our numbers there when it comes to the accuracy of these reports. So if that is the case, we can actually utilize the fixed data tool within climate.com. So on this, this is something that you all would have access to within your account on climate.com. If you, in the upper right-hand corner here under your settings tab, there's a fixed data option, and it's going to bring us to this specific screen here. We'll want to make sure when you are editing any data in this tab, you are under the correct planning data or harvest files, whichever you're wanting to work with there. So we'll stick with planning here. We can come over here and ensure we're in the correct year. And then we'll have our field list here. So once we've selected our fields, have our little blue check mark here, we then can come over here and hit our edit tab. So once we've hit our edit tab, this set of boxes is going to come up. This specific example is going to have us change the crop, but we can also change the hybrid name as well. So once we choose what we want to replace, we'll just go with this example here. We're going to change our crop here. Let's say we accidentally set it under soybeans, but it's actually a cornfield. Here we'll make sure we select the original crop and then jump into the new crop that we want to edit to. Once we've selected all that data correctly, we can move over here to tab number 2 and we can hit replace. Once we've gone through that step, you will actually see here towards the middle of your screen, it'll change the color. So as we can see there, it's green. So it's letting us know that it's completed that change there. And then down here in the bottom right-hand corner, we can fully apply those changes. Once those changes have been made, we'll want to make sure that we run a cloud sync on your iPad to pull through any different changes we've made on the web and make sure they're showing up on your iPad correctly. And again, like I was saying for the hybrid as well, if we're wanting to change the hybrid name, we'll go through the same steps. On this first box here, we'll just make sure that we select the hybrid, and then we'll be able to change whichever hybrid name. So that fix-it tool, like I said, is on climate.com and something that you have access to. As always, if you have any assistance with that, feel free to, we have our support hotline that you can call into, or maybe any local climate support you have in your area that can definitely help you take care of this if needed on your guys' end. Let's see, we'll continue to go along into what can we be doing, on your iPad to make sure that everything is up to speed and updated once you guys are ready to hit the field. So one big thing we'll want to make sure we get updated is the CAB app itself. If you're unsure if your CAB app is needing an update, the quickest way and the easiest way really to see is to just jump into your Apple Store on your iPad, and it'll actually show you next to the name itself right here where it says update. If it just says open, you're going to be good to go. You'll be on the most recent version. But if it says update here, we'll just want to go ahead and get that selected, and that'll get us brought to our most recent CAB app version. So as you can see, the most recent one we've got here today with us is 11.3. And we'll show you here a little bit later on where we can maybe check that in your CAB app to ensure that you are updated to the most recent version. The FieldView Black and Gold app, the most recent version there is going to be 6.25. So we'll want to make sure that one's updated as well. And then the iOS version, currently we are completely compatible with the iOS version 15. And so any of those that are within that 15 range for the iPad iOS version itself. Speaking on the iOS version, so about this time every year, Apple comes out with their new iOS version update. And if you have your automatic update turned on, that will, once plugged in, connected to Wi-Fi, it typically will jump through and run through that update within your iPad itself. We do recommend kicking that automatic update off just to ensure that we don't update the iPad when the CAB app itself hasn't been fully tested to run smoothly with that newest update. So if you actually go into the settings on your iPad and under your general tab, there'll be a software update tab, and we can actually go in there and toggle through that to tick those off. Just a good practice to have. So that way, you don't run into any issues once you are out in the middle of during harvest to ensure any issues with your cab app itself. Continuing to move along through just different iPads that you all may be utilizing out in the field. So Apple itself typically supports iPads with the iOS version up to around 5 years or so. So if you're wondering how your iPad's sitting, we have the option on our support channel. We can search this iPad device page right here. This page might be a little small on your guys' screen, but this will give you kind of a rundown on the iPads itself, the year when they were released, and kind of what updated iOS version the iPad itself is able to run. With the iPad or with the cab app we currently have, we have to be on at least iOS 13 to update to the most recent cab app version. So if your iPad's sitting on anything like iOS 12 or anything that's below iOS 13, we unfortunately won't be able to update to the most recent cab app. So that might be something to jump into your iPad to double check that it is either going to be able to update to the most recent iOS version, or you're able to be on the most recent cab app version itself. With that being said, so I'm going to actually switch over to my iPad here. Indy, I might have you give me a yes or no if you guys got that screen for me. Good, cool. All right, so I'm going to jump into the cab app. I'm going to start with real quick, jumping into how to check your cab app version itself. So if you're curious on what version you're on, if you jump into your help tab here from your main screen, and then over here on the left-hand side, this version info tab, that will, this top number here will tell you what version you're on. So it looks like I'm on 11.2.2. So I actually am one version behind the most recent one, that 11.3. So this is just a good place to jump into to double check to see if you need to then go into the App Store and update your iPad. Let's see. So as far as your iPad storage itself, if we jump into our settings tab here, and then over here on the left-hand side, our data tab, this will actually allow us to see how much storage is on the cab app itself. So as you can see, that this bottom bar that I have on my iPad, I've got a little over 103 gigabytes of available storage within my cab app itself. So that I'm sitting pretty good for the data that I have in my Climate account. But if your bar is showing more dark blue than it is the white, you've got a little less space, you may jump into the settings on your iPad, and we can actually see if there's any additional apps or maybe some pictures that we need to send to the cloud just to kind of clear up some space on your iPad itself. And I'll show you real quick on how to double check that. So if we actually go to the settings app here on the left-hand side, make sure we're under our general tab. And then if we scroll down here to this iPad storage piece, this will show you your overall storage on your iPad. So as you can see here at the top, I'm using just about 23 gigabytes of the 128 gigabytes on my iPad. So if your storage is running a little bit low, you can actually straight from this page, maybe delete any apps you're not using, or get rid of anything else that might be taking up some space. So if let's just say I want to get rid of this app here, I can actually delete it directly from this settings app, and that will then begin to clear up storage on my iPad itself. So one thing to hop into, just to double check once you are kind of getting everything ready to go for harvest there. Let's see, after we've kind of cleared up the update itself, the storage, another piece to maybe just run through and double check our field boundaries itself. So I'll jump in here and look into, let's see, let's pull up one of these fields here. So I've got, let's see, there's 4 fields, 3 fields, couple boundaries here. This specific boundary I've got here highlighted in blue. As you can see, it's a pretty clean boundary. My waterways, I've gotten those taken out. The field itself, it just outlines the field. I honestly probably here on the west side of the field could kind of clean up that tree line a little bit more, but it's a pretty good boundary itself. So with that being said, my field health images, my rainfall reports, those are going to be pretty accurate. If I wanted to jump in there and create any seed scripts, that's going to create a pretty accurate script for myself, or again with those rainfall reports or field health images, those are going to come through pretty clean with having those clean boundaries. If we jump here to this field on the west, it looks to be a decent field, but if you really kind of look into it a little bit more, you can see that my the trees, the waterways, those are taken into account with my field boundaries. So that's going to do a few things. My overall field acres count's going to be a little bit high. And then coming back to those field health images, the seed scripts, the rainfall reports, they may not be quite as accurate if you were to take those waterways, tree lines out. And to be able to do that, you can do that on Climate.com and actually utilize the edit boundary tool. And you can actually come in there and just kind of remove different areas of that field, or remove or add as needed when you are editing your boundaries and kind of cleaning those up. And one more thing I will call out, if you run across this in your field where, as you can see, it looks like there's overlapping boundaries. So they're all kind of going over this triangle looking field. But if we jump into, we'll look at this South 1 field. So that's kind of a little bit larger than the field itself, and it's also overlapping this other south field here, as you can see. So with this being said, this might be a problem when it comes to collecting your data. Whenever you're selecting your field, say you have multiple people running your operation, or you yourself just selected, let's say, the south field during planning, and then you accidentally selected this South 1 field come harvest. At the end of harvest, you might think that you've lost some planning data or harvest data, when in reality, they're just sitting in two different boundaries. It's all the same data, it's all in the same field, just sitting in different boundaries itself. So if we have ahead of time, if we can get these cleaned up, merge the boundaries together, that will allow the data to just be collected a lot smoother and a lot cleaner, and a less work to do after harvest itself. So a few things there when it comes to cleaning up boundaries and just kind of making sure everything there is looking how it should be before you hit the field. Another reason I think it's important to have these clean boundaries is the field boundary detection piece. So over here in the upper left-hand corner of your cab app here, if we hit our map options, we've got in this upper section, this field boundary detection piece, there's three different options we have when it comes to basically setting a field active. So this prompt, this very first one that's highlighted white here, this prompt tab, that's going to be our defaulted one, where it's going to ask you if you're in the field. It'll say, do you want to set this field active? And you'll confirm that with a little pop-up box that comes up. This auto field boundary detection piece here, and as you can see, this little pop-up box that comes up, this is one that's going to automatically change as you move through boundaries. So back to, let's say, this boundary down here, if we have that one that auto prompts it, anytime I flip-flop boundaries while I'm out in the field, it's going to automatically switch fields. So this is when the data can get kind of messy, how it's being collected, and why it's important to have those good clean boundaries in there. And then another piece up here, let's say these two fields right here, there's no tree line, no fence line, they're just fields that are side by side. Anytime you were to maybe turn around in that field, it's going to flip-flop fields. So the only time I would honestly probably recommend that auto selection there is if you've got very clean boundaries and boundaries that aren't necessarily touching. So you don't have the option to flip-flop fields while you are out there collecting data. And then we also have this disabled piece. So, if your boundaries really, you didn't get around to it, and you don't want to have to worry about losing or getting data separated out in your field, you can actually come in here and disable it. You will just have to manually jump through your fields list and select every time you do change a field. You'll want to jump in there and select your field, and it'll ask you if you want to set it active, and you'll want to be sure to confirm that there. So important to kind of get those boundaries as clean as we can ahead of time, to just kind of make things easier for you all while you are out in the field. Let's see, moving along here, one more thing I do want to touch on is your drive offload status. So this is something you can check when you are actually connected to the drive. You get connected here. So once you're under your settings and your devices tab, this will bring you to your drives tab. As you can see, I've got the green check mark, so it's showing I am connected to my drive. If we hit this edit tab here in the upper right-hand corner, this will bring us to this pop-up here. With myself utilizing an example drive, it doesn't give the full view of what yours is going to look like. You'll actually have your field list showing right underneath this offload status. And then you'll have some numbers here as far as out of 100%, what's your progress and how many files still need offloaded, along with estimated time remaining if there's data that still needs to be offloaded. So when we look at this piece here, we will want to make sure that that offload status is sitting at 100%. That's just going to allow for the data collection piece and the cloud sync factor to just move along a lot smoother. If you've got some fields that aren't quite to 100%, or your overall offload status isn't sitting at 100%, it can kind of affect the cloud sync process. And while you're out in the field continuing to collect data, it's still trying to offload fields from previous days. So it's just going to kind of backlog what you've got pulling from the drive to your computer or to your iPad to the cloud itself. So a way to get this to 100%, if it's not sitting at 100%, is your iPad just needs to be connected to the drive, just needs to have power to the drive itself. And with that connection there, it will move through the process of fully offloading that drive itself. So if you jump in there and you're not seeing it's at quite 100%, I would, before you hit the fields, try to get that up to 100% to just ensure everything is moves smoothly and is able to cloud sync as it should while you are out in the field. Let's see, with that being said, Krista, I think I will pass it off to you here.
All right. Perfect. Thank you, Adrian. While we're sitting here and waiting for Krista to go ahead and pull up her screen, I do have one question I want to just kind of clarify related to offload status. Could it be possible for planting data from this past spring to still be on the FieldView drive? And what's the impact if folks don't get that planting data offloaded before they begin harvest?
Absolutely. Good question, Mindy. Thanks for that. So yeah, there is, if a grower hit the field, or when they finished up with planting, the offload status didn't fully hit 100% once they finished up planting their last field, there is still the possibility that offload status hasn't hit 100% yet. Or even if, let's say, the drive itself was left in the planter tractor and maybe they utilized the tractor itself for mowing hay or raking hay, and it was still acting like it was collecting data there. So once we hit the combine here, what the drive's going to do while out in the field is try to offload all of that data from planting or from throughout the growing season before it even hits, before we're able to offload the harvest data. So if we can get that offload status up to 100% there before we're able to hit the combine, that will allow just for smoother data transfer from the drive itself to the cab app and allow that process just to go smoother than if we're kind of backlog on that data that's sitting on the drive itself.
Great. And a follow-up to that is you mentioned making sure that the drive has power. So just so folks know what they have in store for them for that, that includes getting in the cab and plugging that CAN bus in, right?
Correct. Yes. And so it doesn't have to be a specific piece of equipment. It doesn't have to necessarily be the planter tractor or the combine itself. As long as the drive has power, then that will allow for the offload status process to begin.
Okay, this is my last question, and then I'll pass it off to Krista. How long should folks anticipate that offloading your drive data could take?
I have actually seen in the past, depending on how much data is sitting on that drive, whether it's, sitting at 70%, 90%, as far as the offload status itself, it can take, I have seen it take a couple of hours, and I've honestly seen it take a little bit longer. So it would be something that I wouldn't necessarily try to do the morning of hitting the field. I would maybe even 3 or 4 days before you, or when you get the combine out, just getting things ready there, jump in there, throw your drive up in your cab, and maybe let your iPad and drive sit while you're working on the combine, just to ensure that you give it enough time to fully offload, so you're not having to worry about that while you are out in the field.
Perfect. Thank you so much. All right, Krista. all you.
All right, so kind of moving forward with some live app demos here, but a little bit more of a focus on what to do once you are in the combine. So first and foremost, what you're going to want to do even before you get to the combine is make sure that your equipment is set up. So to do so, go to the equipment tab, and then at the bottom, hit add new equipment. Now it's pretty user friendly, but what you're going to do is just go through here and select what you're setting up. So of course, for harvest season, if you're doing a combine, go down and select combine. Next, you're going to select the combine make, and then find the series that your combine is in, and then select the model. So pretty straightforward, just select what you need and hit next, and then give it a quick name. So name it whatever you want, whatever is easiest for you to keep track of. And then it'll pull up this new page. So this is the page that is really important when it comes to good quality maps. Is what you'll see is this first page is GPS offsets. So these GPS offsets essentially are the measurements that tell us how wide we need to make that pass within Cab App. So essentially as a grower, all you need to do is go in, measure these and make sure they're accurate. A lot of times, if you are starting to see overlapping between passes or maybe some passes that are a little bit off, it's usually because these measurements are off. So just kind of a call out here is make sure that you have all this good to go before you get started this season. Another thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to go in and set up your combine head. So you can see I have a couple already in here, but to add a new head, just go ahead and hit the add new head button. And then again, pretty user friendly. You'll drop down for your head type. So if it's row crop or platform, put that in there and then put in your number of sections. Another thing that you'll see in this section is what's called max harvesting height. So max harvesting height is actually the threshold that FieldView maps on. So kind of the best way to set this is my recommendation is when you're in the combine and you are connected to this piece of equipment, whatever you are harvesting at, add 30% to, and then that is the best way to set max harvesting height. And I'll show you what that looks like on the map screen as well, but this is another way to find it. In addition to that, of course, we do have those measurements again, your row spacing. Make sure that's accurate just so we have accurate passes. So once you have that, you're good to go for there. Go ahead and go into settings. So this is another section. Most of the time you are going to want to have shared swath on. So what shared swath does is it does detect where you've already been with the combine. So really good feature to have on there. If you do for some reason want to turn that off, go ahead and turn that off. There's also a section in here called adjust GPS location. So again, this is a place to go if maybe things are a little bit off. Maybe you're on the map screen and you're not perfectly aligned with your hybrid map from the planting season. So this is a good way that you can go in and adjust GPS location. And also like max header height, there is a way to adjust this from the map screen as well. And then finally go into crop settings and you're going to want to select what crop you are harvesting. So after that, all you have to do is select done. That will add it to your list. You can see there's my combine 1. And then once you're in the cab and you're connected to a drive, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to go into this tab and set active next to it. So as you can see, I do have a combine active right now on my demonstration here, and you really want to look to make sure that you have a green check mark there. So once your equipment is all set up, you can go into the map screen. Again, this is just kind of a demo simulation, so the maps are not perfect, but there's really good tools that you can use here as well. So one, if while you're actively combining in the field, you can go in and see reports. So if you hit these dots, it's the square with the arrow there, and tap harvest summary. That will give you an overview of your summary right now for that field. How many acres you've harvested, your wet weight, your percent moisture, your dry bushels, and your average yield. So as you can see, that kind of does give that information. It will tell you how that's breaking down based on hybrid. Again, this is a simulation, so you're not going to quite see all the info on mine that you will on yours, but really that's just a quick way to pull up a summary and a report while you're actively harvesting to see how that's going. Another great feature while you are actively harvesting is using load list. So if you tap this widget that says load, you will see that each load is coming up here. So if you are wanting to create a new load and start mapping that differently, what you'll do is you'll just hit this plus button. And as you can see, that added load 3. So since that just started, now that's putting different metrics under load 3. A lot of growers will use the load list to track different things. Of course, they'll look at loads on the very basics, but let's say you have some different hybrids or you did some trials or something like that. Load lists are a great way to track that as well. And then once you're done, you can print a PDF of these. So if you want to break up the field in certain ways to see different metrics, you can do that. Also, you can edit the name of these loads. So let's say it is a specific hybrid or you want it to be a different name than just load 1, load 2, load 3. All you have to do is tap on the load name, and then you can go ahead and just type in whatever name you would like. So that is a way to create load list. And if you're wanting to create a new load, it is very, very simple. You don't necessarily have to go into that button. There is this button that says new load in the bottom corner here. So if you tap that, you can see my load switched over to load 4. So that created a brand new load. So essentially, if you're wanting to separate by loads, just tap the new load button every time you are wanting to switch over. In addition to that, another feature which is really beneficial during our upcoming harvest season is remote view. So let's say you're back at the house and you have someone else in the combine and you really just want to get those live metrics and see what's going on. Remote view will be done by the equipment page. So what you'll do essentially is if it's a shared account, so if you are logged into the same account as the person in the field, you'll go down and you'll scroll down and you'll find that piece of equipment you want to see. And you'll see that there is this remote view button. Now for me, it is grayed out just because the other equipment on my list are not currently connected in the field. So the remote view button will always be grayed out unless something is actively moving in the field. But all you'll do is you'll go to that piece of equipment and hit remote view. What that will do is it'll bring up a screen and it'll allow you to see that piece of equipment. So remote view will not show you the entire cab app. It will just show you the screen of what that combine is looking at. Another way for remote view too as well, if you do have some shared accounts, is you can search by FieldView username. Type in their FieldView username up there, and then their equipment that they're currently connected to will show up underneath of here, and then you can connect to it the same way. But in order to see that, you do have to have your operation shared with each other. In addition to remote view, we'll go back to the map screen here as well. Another thing that you can look into is being able to edit the metrics pane. So the metrics pane is really all these green boxes on the side. If you tap this edit gear button in the very bottom corner, it'll show up this edit metrics pane. So as you can see, there are a bunch of different metrics, a bunch of different stats. So maybe there's something within here that you would like to see that's currently not on the side. All you have to do is, I'll pull field acres remaining here, is if you tap on that, press and hold, and then just pull it over to where you want it. So this gives you the ability just to move things around, and maybe there's some metrics in here that you would like to see. So, and you can change these as needed. We also have the drop pin metric. So if you want to drop a pin, drop a note about something going on in the field, that's an option where you can just hit that button and it will create a pin where you're at, and you can put in some notes. So maybe you see a rock, something you want to take note of later, you can go ahead and put that right there. So other than that, that's kind of the big things while actively harvesting. I'll go ahead and disconnect from my drive here. So after you are done harvesting and you get your final numbers, and let's say you want to make some adjustments. What you can do is you can do what's called a post-harvest adjustment. And to do that, again, kind of like before when we pulled up the reports, it's this arrow with the 3 lines. And if you go to harvest summary, that will pull up your report for that field. And then there's this pencil that says tap to adjust field yield. So you can tap that button and you can adjust the harvested acres, your wet weight, your moisture, your bushels. So maybe if you see something that's a little different or you just want to change it a little bit, you can go into those reports and edit these after the fact. It will not let you edit these while you are actively mapping. So just something to do. It's pretty simple and easy. And then of course, after that, you have your report here and you can create a PDF of it. So that'll create a PDF that's pretty easy to read. It has a picture of it. And then you have at the top, you can either email it, you can print it, want to share it with one of your trusted advisors, that is available to do so. So back into the cab app, that kind of concludes what I'm going to go over on live mapping and live demonstrations, but there's also a lot of resources available for you as well in addition to this webinar. So if you are in the cab app and you are in the field and you need some extra assistance, go ahead and dive into the help tab. And what you'll see at the top of the help tab is our climate support number. So I do recommend a lot of growers go ahead and put that in your contacts, but that is the number that will link you to our climate support team. We are based here in St. Louis. We do have a lot of individuals with various backgrounds, many with ag degrees, and we're ready to help you. We're pretty proud of ourselves this past planting season. We only had a 33-second wait time. So you will get a live person on the phone very quickly. So that's a good way just to get help, and we can walk you through some things and answer any questions you have. Also, if you fill out this information, you can put in your contact phone number and type in kind of the problems you are having and submit a ticket. That'll go directly to our support team. So they will then reach out to you to troubleshoot things further. In addition to that, we do have a couple of other resources I will show here. On our website, which is support@climate.com, we have what is called our Knowledge Center. So if you're wanting to maybe learn more about FieldView or just wanting to get a little more knowledge before the season starts, this is a great place to go. At the very top of the website, you'll see that you have an option to search for keywords. So this is a great place to look for different tools and resources. So let's say you have a specific monitor, let's say it's a Case Pro 700, and you want to look up resources for it. You can type in that search bar that name, and it'll pull up that information. Maybe it's something with harvest, but regardless, just those keywords will help pull up lots of different articles and how-tos on how to use FieldView. Below that search bar, we do have a bunch of seasonally relevant videos. So maybe you're just hopping on the support website and want to see what we currently have available, see what's available. So you can go in there, that'll give you some seasonally relevant information. Below that, you will see a section that has a lot of Knowledge Center topics that are arranged by category. So this just makes it easy to find different topics that you're looking into. As we go into this season, a great place I like to go to is just go ahead and click on that harvest button and really just see what articles are there. So there's a lot of articles on how-tos, how to set things up, but really ways that you can take your FieldView experience to the next level. And then finally, at the bottom of the Knowledge Center, you'll see a lot of seasonally relevant documents too. So we keep that updated with things that will be most beneficial to you all during this season. In addition to that, we do have a YouTube channel. So if you like this webinar, we will have the webinar recordings housed there as well. And there's a lot of different how-tos on our YouTube channel as well. So lots of these are kind of like this webinar. They're live walkthroughs of how to do different features within the app. It's a great place to look and learn more. And if you want to go back and reference this webinar in the future, it will be housed there. And with that, I really thank you all for your time. Mindy, if you have some questions here, we can answer.
Absolutely, we sure do. And Adrian, I'm going to ask a couple questions here and then perhaps ask you to go back into or go into your climate.com account. And I think we'll have time to go through merging fields and perhaps editing some boundaries if you want to pull that up while I'm asking a couple questions. So Christy, you talked about quite a bit about load changes. For folks that are utilizing a 2020 with the FieldView Cab app, what are some best practices around load lists when working with a 2020?
Yeah, so best practices with load lists for 2020 is to do everything in the 2020. So if you are one of our 2020 users, really the best general rule of thumb is that you're going to do all of your settings in the 2020. Cab app just reads what you do there. So that's true for load list and changes there, but it's also true for equipment setup. So as for setting up equipment, that all is going to happen on the 2020 side, and then Cab app just reads it. So you won't make any changes like that within Cab app.
Perfect. Okay, so the other thing that you talked a little bit about was GPS adjustment. And so when folks are in their connected cab or the combine, how do they know if they're looking at their FieldView Cab app screen? How do they know if they need to perform a FieldView GPS adjustment? And I can make you the presenter again so that you can show that on screen.
Yes.
What that looks like.
Yeah, so doing a GPS adjustment, Kind of the best way to check for it, I'll go ahead and connect back to a drive for this
Or
demonstration.
not? There we go. Okay.
Okay. So if your GPS is off a little bit, again, this is a demo map, so I can't show it super well, but the best way to see if you are off is there is this button with the two boxes. And if you do that, it will create what's called a split screen. So the best way to see if you're off is to go on the one of the split screens. You can go to planting. Of course, I don't have a map here, but you can it'll show your hybrid map, and then you can have your yield map on the other side. So essentially having these two side by side, you'll be able to see that, okay, my combine's a little off on where I should be with the hybrid map. So this gives you the ability to see where your hybrid map is while you are actively mapping. So that is the best place to really just go in and see the differences there.
So the other place that I've also seen folks understand if they need to do a GPS adjust is if they have the hybrid metric on their metric pane.
Yep.
And if two hybrids show up in that metric box, so I'll let you go ahead and put that up there as I'm talking about that. And so if you find that hybrid metric, and then if you see, typically you're going to see one hybrid listed there, but if you see two hybrids listed in that metric, then that's when you need to know, or when you know also. So you can do it visually through the maps, like Krista said, with split view. And so again, that split view button was in the upper right hand cluster of controls. And then you can also look in that current hybrid metric box. So those are two places that you can kind of keep an eye on to make sure that you do or don't need to perform a GPS adjust.
Yep, that is a great call out, Mindy, for sure. Two good places to check, and then beyond that, all you have to do is just start moving that GPS till everything lines up.
Okay, one more question for Krista, and then Adrian, I'll bring you to the presenter controls and we can go over merging fields. So we talk a little bit about Bluetooth connectivity and for whatever reason, it seems like there's always a Bluetooth connectivity issue. Bluetooths don't keep a consistent connection. They're going through the air for that connection. It's not a wired connection. So, Krista, talk us through some of the troubleshooting tips for folks that might be experiencing a Bluetooth connectivity issue between the cab app and their FieldView drives.
Yes, so there's a couple of key tips to look for Bluetooth. The first and foremost, which is one of the simplest, is just make sure you don't have a lot of extra Bluetooth connections going on. So if you have Bluetooth on your phone and you're not using it, turn it off. Maybe you have extra iPads floating around, make sure you turn those off as well. I've actually taken some support calls before where I've had a grower who's had someone in the grain cart running next to him with an iPad, and the drive was connecting to that iPad instead of the iPad in the combine. So really just be really diligent to make sure that you have that taken care of. Another thing that you can do is within your iPad settings, you can go into your Bluetooth settings and there's an option where you can forget Bluetooth devices. So essentially going through and forgetting any Bluetooth devices that before you're not currently using, that can help clean things up as well. And then finally, something we recommend pretty frequently on the support lines is doing what's called resetting network settings. So within the iPad, you're going to go to settings, you'll go to general. At the bottom of the page, it says reset, and then it'll say reset network settings. So this is the same page you would go if you were to factory reset your iPad, but in this case, it's just kind of refreshing that network. And a lot of times doing that refresh will help drives connect back in if you are running into trouble with keeping those connected.
So you're not resetting the iPad, you're just resetting the network settings.
Correct.
And folks, if you are familiar with our support.climate.com website, the Knowledge Center, you can type in the search bar, reset network settings, and those steps that Krista just went through are found there as well.
Yep, it won't change anything on your iPad at all when you reset network settings. The only thing that you might run into is you have to retype in your Wi-Fi password next time you connect to it. But other than that, it's just kind of refresh, kind of like a turn it off, turn it back on for your network settings. So
kind of like whenever I have to reset my router for my Wi-Fi at home.
Yeah.
That's what it's doing up for the iPad.
Yep, correct.
Okay. All right, Adrian, would you mind? I think you should be able to pull up your screen, and show us how we could merge maybe those two field boundaries that you showed us that were looking kind of crazy on your account, and then also maybe one of my favorite tools with our editing field boundaries is that waterway tool, and that maybe show us how to utilize that.
Yep, absolutely. So here we are on climate.com. And once I've got logged in here, this is our main screen that we're going to see the map here to our right, the fields on our left. So these two fields that had overlapping boundaries. So I'll jump into one of those real quick, just so you can see what I was talking about there. So this is one of the fields that the field itself had the other boundary that was sitting on top of it. So how we can fix that is on this climate.com website here. So on our left-hand side down here at the bottom, we'll have our manage fields option. And then, so what I want to come in here and do is select the south field and the south one field. And then I'll have the option up here to actually merge these two fields together. So as you can see, we've got both overlapping boundaries here, and we'll have the option to keep a boundary itself or combine the boundaries. So I'll combine them, and then we're going to be able to select the field name that we want to keep it at. So I'm going to keep just this AD South field. So I'll save that there, and that will then merge the two boundaries. So that way now I just have the one. Now this is still kind of funky looking. So if I hit this little pencil and paper here, this will actually allow me to jump in here and do a little bit more editing. So let's say now I want to kind of clean this up. So this remove option up here, I can actually come up here and just, let's say I just want to kind of draw a polygon. And you'll want to be sure just to get outside of the area, you want to remove the very last dot you're clicking, double click on that, and it'll remove that itself. Or you can actually just drag and move these dots as well throughout the field rather than just drawing it. You can just kind of move them in accordingly how they need to be. Then I've got this other piece down here. I could come here, get rid of that, and now I've got a lot cleaner field. Acre-wise is a lot cleaner than what it was. So that's just a quick way you can remove any pieces of the field real quickly while I am here. If I wanted to draw any piece, I can actually come in here. Let's say this little area I want to add on. Now I've added on this little piece in the upper left-hand corner here. So different options there as far as how you can edit those boundaries, merge them. Pretty simple process here on climate.com. I will jump into the field that we needed some waterways removed from. I've got a tool where you don't actually have to necessarily outline it all. You can utilize this waterway tool itself. So back up to our remove option here, we can actually select, there's different options here. You can do your rectangle, circle, waterway, the whole shape, but here we'll do the waterway. So we're going to kind of start a line here. I'll just kind of remove, I'll just pretend this is all waterway here. Double click on our final point, and then we can put how wide the waterway is itself. So we'll just put that in there, and then it will actually take out that waterway rather than having to go in there and actually manually outline the waterway itself. And now with this, with the trees, I could come in here and I could kind of clean this up just a little bit more to make this as accurate as possible there. So once we've done that, now that allows that to look a little bit cleaner. We can save that there. And then, as I mentioned before, anything you do on the website, as far as editing boundaries, editing field names, we'll want to be sure to jump back into your CAB app and run a cloud sync so that way it pulls through any information that you've changed on the web and that you're accurately seeing it on your iPad as well. Mindy, anything else you want me to show while I'm on here?
No, actually, I don't think of anything. Krista, how about you? Do you think of anything that we should show while we're here on the web?
No, I can't think of anything else.
Sure. Actually, I'm going to take that back. One thing that I wouldn't mind you going through, Adrian, is I know that there is an emphasis on, sharing relationships this year with folks, our dealers getting credit for their FieldView targets for sharing. Would you mind going in and showing our sharing options?
Yep, absolutely. So again, from our main home screen here on the climate.com, upper right-hand corner, if we hit our settings tab, and then we can jump into this sharing feature here. This will show you the list of people that you are shared with. And then if you toggle over to this tab that says shared with me, this is any account that is actually shared with your climate account. So if you wanted to invite someone to share with you, we can click right here, this invite tab. And from here, you will put in the other customer's Climate FieldView account, and then you'll invite them to share. They'll receive an email that's saying Adrian Dean's wanting to share or invite you to share your climate account with him, or you can actually share your account here. So once you put in the email address here, you have the option to share your whole operation, or you can share farm by farm or field by field. And then additionally, you have the option to share the data excluding yield data or including the yield data. So you've got some options there on that sharing piece, on what you're sharing, what they can see. And really, you know, if you think about it, your data is it's your data until you share it with your, let's say, your seed dealer. Then they have the opportunity to see it. But until you do that, it's just data that's sitting in your account. And then you can also have the opportunity to, you know, change what you're sharing as far as field or operation wise, or remove who you're sharing with or who's sharing with you at any point in time within your climate account itself.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So, folks, this wraps up the content that we feel will get you set, ready to go to collect some really great data for harvest. We do appreciate your time and appreciate you spending a little bit of it with us this morning. We wish you the safest and smooth harvest season that you've had, and we want to make sure that you know that the folks here at FieldView want to make sure that you're ready to go and can collect your data. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate to contact our support team. You can contact them via email at support@climate.com. And then you can also reach us at our 800 number, 888-924-7475. And we have folks that have extended harvest hours, so that we're there whenever you need us. Krista, would you mind running through those harvest hours for us? Do you know those?
Yes. So we do harvest hours 7 days a week. Starting next week, we will be running the support lines Monday through Friday, 7 to 7. So a little bit extended there. And then it's 12 to 4 on Sundays and 8 to 5 on Saturdays.
Fabulous. Folks, thanks again, and please have a safe harvest. Thank you.